Hey everybody, it's Justin from BITNERBUILT, and I'm really excited for today's video. I love organization, I love shop storage, that's what we're doing. I'm up high, I'm standing up on my assembly table. That is my garage door, and that is the space above my garage door. I have about 2.5 to 3 feet of space up there that I'm not really utilizing very well. And so what my new kind of ethos organizational system in the shop is everything from waist down should be big tools or workspace, and everything from waist up should be storage. So I need to take some stuff that's eating up that good workspace down there and move it up high. That is the goal of today. I also want to build both of my different solutions to be customizable so that as my needs change over time, what I'm storing changes over time. I don't have to rebuild it. I want to be able to just alter things. And I also want some of it to be very highly organizable because my intention is to actually take all my hardwood scraps, put them up here, and be able to divide them all by species of wood so that I can sort them all out and make it a lot easier. So let's get to building some custom organization today on BITNERBUILT. Before we start building, we need to figure out what we're actually putting up there, right? That will dictate how we're going to build things. So my goal right now is to eliminate everything that you see from my waist down. I want to, actually in my next video, I'm going to junk all of this. I'm going to rip it out and build a new solution. But before I do that, I need a place for all this stuff to go. So first off, yes, I have a lot of scrap stuff here. A lot of it's going in the fire. I'm guilty just like everybody else. You amass a whole bunch of scrap, even when you kind of think, I'm going to keep only this size piece, you amass stuff. So every once in a while you need to purge. I'm going to do a big purge, of course. But I want the flexibility to, like how I have for this torsion box top. I did a whole video on this, and I love how I'm able to put a big 8-inch jointer under here. You can roll out when I want to use it, but it goes underneath, and I still have a giant workspace. So I want to be able to do that this whole way too. Now, in addition to my junky scrap wood, I have these carts at the bottom, and this is my hardwood scrap storage. Because it's in this big bin, at first I was like, oh, cool, make a big bin for this stuff. Well, now I got to dig through this big bin to find what I want. So in my storage solution, I want it to be very modular, and I want to be able to make cubbies that can, get bigger or smaller based on what I have. If I have a whole bunch of poplar today, it might get a big cubby. But as I use it, I can shrink down that cubby to be smaller and put other things in other places. So I want a modular sorting system for my hardwoods, particularly up there. And then I have other stuff like, all these are so heavy. Paint cans. This whole thing is full of paint. So over the other garage, I think I want to do more of a shelving system, maybe like a 2-tiered shelving system where I can put more boxy, bigger items and just, again, get them up out of the way. The last thing that we need to account for before we start building is how we're mounting it to the wall. Because I want to put a lot of weight on these shelves, I need to use a bracket. I don't want to just rely on the bottom part of the cabinet carcass. And so, typically you can buy these at the big box store. They're cheap. They are very large, and they have this huge diagonal member, which is what's really supporting all the weight, this diagonal. The problem with this bracket is when the garage door opens, it doesn't just go like this. It makes an arc. So the garage door is going to rise even higher, which eliminates some of my storage space. In order for me to use a bracket like this, I would have to mount it way high, because otherwise the garage door is going to hit this diagonal member here. So that's not good. I wanted to find something with a very low profile bracket so that I could support a lot of weight, but get it as low as possible to maximize the storage up above. I went searching the internet. I found a company called Shelfology. They make very cool brackets, shelving systems, all sorts of stuff. If you've never heard about them, check them out. I have them linked down below. This is their Studley line, and they have a whole bunch of different options. This is heavy-duty steel, and it's actually hand-welded too, which is pretty cool. It's not a mass-manufactured thing. This model right here can be mounted flat onto the side of a wall, any sort of flat surface that you have. And it has a flat surface at the top. That way, when I do my sorting box over here, it'll be able to just sit flat on top of it. But the main thing It's that really low profile here. When I hold it up against this other bracket, it is less than half of this bracket. So the fact that there is no giant diagonal here is what makes this awesome for my particular solution here. They have another model. This more adheres to the Studly name because this one literally gets attached to the side of a stud. So this model can only be used if you have exposed studs. So garages, barns, sheds, all sorts of stuff. This is a great option. And then what this one does is you then use 2x4s or 2x6s, depending on the model you get, and you just mount them right here, and it holds them in place. They get screwed down, and boom, you have a shelf. Really easy. So that side of the garage is going to be very quick when we install these. All of these were powder-coated blue at my request. They custom make everything. So you can choose from a whole bunch of different colors. If you're team red, you can make these red or whatever type of motif you want to go through. I also got a third style, and it's the exact same as the other one, except this one has a hook built in underneath. If you're in a shed or something, this is really awesome just for another mounting point here to maybe put power cables, rope, different things that you can hang off of this. I'm going to use it as a second higher tier because I don't want this to hit my garage door. And this is going to make a long pipe shelf for me. So if I have conduit, dowels, all sorts of long stuff that I don't want to put up on my wood storage, I now will have an additional shelf just built into this that I can put long things on. It's time to start mounting my brackets, but in my case, I'm missing some studs up above my garage door. I have header beams here with a single center stud, and so that's okay. Honestly, I would have expected there to be studs here as well, but I guess it wasn't necessary to code where I live. Might be where you are. So I'm going to add in studs. These studs are being spaced 16 inches off of center. If you're unfamiliar with the term on center, it means from the center of this stud to the center of this stud is 16 inches. If you're going to do this, make sure that you measure and cut every single one of these individually. There is a ½ inch difference between here and here. That is not a large span, and that is a huge, huge difference from a measurement standpoint. That's because whenever you do house construction stuff, you cannot just assume that stuff is level. If you go to hang some cabinetry and you're measuring off the floor, you're probably going to have some crooked cabinetry. So what we need to do next for marking out where all of our brackets are going to go is either use a bubble level, or in my case, I'm going to take out my laser level so that it'll project a nice level line instead of having a crooked shelf being installed here next. I've moved my garage door to its highest point. It still has travel in here, just so you know that, but this is the highest point. I'm going to then take my Shelfology Studly bracket here and position it so that it's about an inch above the garage door. You could go ½ inch, but I really don't want to have it sitting on there because it'll cause some problems. So I want a little bit of a gap. The big thing to note is if I had been using that other bracket with that big diagonal, I probably would have had to mount it maybe all the way up here. I'd say probably losing 3, 4, 5 inches off of this, and I don't even think I would have been able to put a second tier in that case. So that's why I'm really happy that I bought something that has a very low profile when mounting here. I'm then positioning my laser level so it's at the top of the bracket. I did a video on laser levels. If you haven't watched it, 20 uses for laser levels. This is 21. I keep adding to the list because they're super useful machines. I highly recommend you watch that video if you haven't seen it. I'll link it down below. It's also not on a stable platform right now. So see, it's yelling at me saying it's not stable. I'm going to move this to a stable position, but I wanted it in camera just so you could see it for a minute. One more thing. Once you get your laser level exactly where you want it to be, go and check all of the studs real quick. It'll only take you a couple seconds because maybe your garage door is crooked too, and we're making a level line, so I might be okay over here, but as soon as I mount that bracket at that end, the garage door might hit it when it's coming up. So just take that extra step just to be sure. All of the bottom brackets are on. Now I'm going to put my second row over on the right side of the garage door. I want to put them as high as possible. Obviously, they have to be mounted to the studs. This is as high as I can kind of go. It would be a mistake, though, for me to just screw it in as high as it can go on all of these studs. Sorry for shaky cam, but I really want to show you here. I start at the top But as we go down the row, I'm a full inch from the top by the other end of this garage door. So this beam up top is very, very crooked. So I highly recommend a laser level. It makes it really easy, and you know that you're going to be precise. These shelves on the right side of the garage, it's really easy. These are super easy. Once you get these brackets on, all you got to do is put 2x4s on top of them, and then there's some screws to just put in underneath to hold it in place, and then it's rock solid. For the top level, I'm doing one solid 12-foot board all the way across. But for this lower level, there is a bar right here that moves with the garage door. So I can't make it one solid piece. I need to leave a gap. So I've cut it here, and I'm going to make another small shelf on the other side. I wanted to point out somewhere where I screwed up. I screw up all the time, and I always want to show you when I do, just so we can see how to fix it, of course. I used my laser level, and it did a fantastic job in making sure that all of my brackets were in the exact same spot. But that did not control the angle afterwards. It just made sure that the top was where it needed to be. And this one is definitely at a bad angle. The other three right here are great. It fit well. So don't fear if you do this, not a problem. What I did was I took out all the other screws, and I'm going to take a piece of wood right now because I don't want to damage this nice bracket. I'm going to put the wood here. I'm just going to pound it up. There we go. Now it's in place. I'm going to put a screw right here into the wood so that it holds it in place really well, and then I'm going to re-put in the screws along the wall, and everything's fixed. One way to avoid this that I didn't do, but I'm thinking about it after the fact, right, would be after you do one screw in the top all the way across, take a level and put it here before you start screwing in one more screw on each one of these brackets. That way we know it's level and in position before we spend the time putting in the other 50 million screws that we have to put in with all of these. So through the magic of video, this is what we're going to be building. We're going to build 2 of these dado sorter cabinets. We have a very large bay at the end. That way if we have something that's really tall, I have some medium-sized plexiglass sheets I'm going to be putting in there. And then we have this center divider. Now, how I have it, I just have it on blocks at the moment. I kind of have a slightly bigger spot in the bottom than the top. You could even, if depending on what your needs are, you could make 2 of these and have 2 levels in here and have a ton of little boxes. I might mount one right here, and I think I'm going to mount the other one by raising this up and having a really big space underneath and a really small space on top. That way I kind of have a little bit of everything in my, my setup. Again, it really depends on what you're looking to store inside this sorter. I have all my stock broken down, and it's time to now cut my dados into my top, my bottom, and my middle divider board. When you're doing a dado cut, it is a cut across the grain of the wood. If it were with the grain of the wood, it would be known as a groove. So we're doing dado cuts. A dado cut is a dangerous cut, and that's because the blade will be hidden. We're only cutting, you know, at maximum halfway through this board. So this wood will be blocking my view of the blade. The blade also can't have its guard on when we do this either. So again, we're making it more dangerous. So rather than pushing this wood through, which you typically want to put your thumbs at the end of the wood, you might think you know where that blade is, but you know what? If you can't see it, you don't know where it is. I wouldn't trust my hands here because for all you know, that blade might pop out right in the middle of your finger. So I recommend using block style holders, not push sticks, for 2 reasons. One, you want your hands on top. You don't want your hands back here where the blade's going to be popping out. And number 2, you need to add downward pressure when you are doing a dado cut. If you do not add that pressure, the blade is, when it's rotating, it actually wants to pick up the wood, and so you'll get an inaccurate depth at certain points. And then when you go to slide your divider in on this wood, you know, it's going to go and then it's going to get stuck because that groove all of a sudden is taller because of a hump because you weren't pushing down. So block-based styled ones are good. I have the micro jig grip ripper and the grip block. I actually use this grip block all the time with my jointer and my router table because it has this little foot and it'll grab. So this one, not only does it push down, but it also pushes forward and advances my wood for me. I know a lot of people, when you're doing smaller projects, like to leave all your pieces together, slide it through once because you only had to slide it through once, not 3 times, 4 times, whatever, how many pieces you have. And then when it's all done, you cut it into pieces. That is not going to work for this build because these pieces are huge. It's off camera even, so it's a big piece. If I left it all together, I would be sliding sheets of plywood through here basically. So you need to break down all your pieces to its final size. Yes, it will be more passes, but it's what we need to do. When using a dado stack, it is multiple saw blades stacked together, kind of like a sandwich. And what you want to do is make sure you read the instructions, because the instructions are your best friend in making things easy. In my case, it told me that I needed to use my 2 exterior blades and 2 of my thick spacers right here. So rather than me playing around with this forever and doing a ton of test cuts, I know that if I do this, I'm going to be making a 1/4 inch cut. So this will save me a lot of time, a lot of headache. So I'm excited to be able to use these together. I'm going to set the height to 1/4 inch on the saw blade. There is one last crazy important step. Do not skip this step. It's super important. So I have the top and the bottom that we're going to cut our dados on. And then I have the middle divider that I'm going to cut it on both sides. What we need to do before we start running dados on this is we need to attach a scrap 3/4 inch piece of wood to the end that will be going up against our fence. Why do we need to do this? When we're assembling this, the top and the bottom, they go all the way to the edges. But this guy doesn't go all the way to the edge. There will be a wall on the side that this then gets tacked into. That wall is 3/4 of an inch, and so it's moving it 3/4 of an inch this way. If we want to run everything through the table saw at the same time, we want to add this piece on here. If we don't, our grooves are going to be off and all of our dividers are going to be crooked inside this box. So make sure that we take a 3/4 inch piece of wood, line it up at the end, and then we're just going to temporarily tack it on. I'm just going to even use a pin nailer. It's not even anything super crazy. All I want is that distance. I want that gap eaten up correctly. There we go. So super easy, super quick, but you have to do this. I'm going to cut my dados now. I have 4 boards that are the tops and bottoms. These 4 will only get cut on one side. I have 2 of the middle dividers. These will be cut on both sides. We're going to be cutting for a long time, so do not ignore your PPE. It is very important. Make sure you're wearing a face mask for dust, hearing, and vision. I'm also going to be opening my garage door and putting a fan on because it's going to be hogging out a lot of wood in here. When I set up my table saw, I am setting it first to cut at 3 inches away from the edge of the board for my first cut. And then every increment after that, I'm going to be moving my fence 2 inches. This is not set in stone though. You can choose whatever denomination you want. Just understand that the closer you get these dado grooves together, the more organizational options you're going to have. You can divide in very small movements. If you space them out really big, you're going to have very big differences whenever you move your dividers. So being as this is going to be a lengthy process, try and figure out what works for you as far as the amount of labor you're going to put in versus the amount of versatility you're going to get after. All right, there is a reason why I talk about safety on this channel so much. It's because things happen, and they even happen to me all the time. So I'm sure they happen to you too. And I'm focusing on it. So if you're not focusing on it, ooh, big problems, right? So as I was just cutting my 4th row on this board, what I've been doing is using my block. I start at the front as I'm pushing, and then as my arm gets, long, outreached, I then reposition back to the back side of the wood for the final push to get it all the way through the board. What happened, though, to me was when I alleviated the downward pressure that I was telling you about earlier to do this, the board decided to go whee like this, because this blade is pushing it up and back towards me. So my other hand was here. Right now I'm only on row 4, so my hand's very far away from the blade. As I start to shift over, I would be using my second block. However, my hand pushed it back down, but I did get a big gouge in one of my lines here. So my line is a lot wider right here. It's not a big deal. Nobody's going to see it. It's inside the thing, and it's not going to hurt its functionality. But the main thing is, while a dado cut appears to be just another simple cut that you're doing, it does have more danger to it. And when you're doing something at the table saw, or any tool in particular, where it's just a million repetitive of the same things, you sometimes become less attentive to what you're doing. So this is just a reminder, make sure you're focusing on what you're doing, because if you become unattentive during those things, that is when some accident is more likely to happen. All my dados are cut. I did leave a very large strip with no dados on both the top and bottom piece. Why I did that is my center divider is not the entire length of this unit. And so when it stopped, I'm going to have a vertical member here. I want to be able to get the most holding power between glue and screws there. Having a dado right where this would be a problem. So I did a little bit of a skip. I'm going to go ahead and assemble this right now with pocket hole screws and glue. All of the weight of this is being supported by our Studley brackets up there, our Shelfology brackets. So I'm doing it the easy way and just doing butt joints. That was heavy. That was heavy. Okay. Okay, we got both of the sorter boxes up there. I pulled a muscle putting it up there. So definitely make sure that you have two strong individuals to be able to get it up there. They are very, very heavy. They look small on the video right now, but honestly, those two boxes are the equivalent of everything that I was looking to get rid of over on that side of the shop. And I have my other solution as well. So I should end up being a net positive in all of my storage space through this. So I'm very excited about that. It's time to make the dividers. That's the last thing we have to do for this. I'm not going to give you the dimensions for these because I made mine in very different shapes. So you can see this one's a little close to being equally divided. The top's a little bit smaller, but that one I made very small up at the top. Your decisions in this may vary. Overall, you should make the divider 23 inches deep instead of 24 inches, simply because we have that backer brace back there. If you make it 24, it's going to stick out the front. And then just make sure that you measure from the bottom of the groove to the top of the groove, and then just subtract maybe a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch from that so that it can freely slide in and out. I am so happy with how all of this turned out. I was able to empty out the entirety of the left side of my shop and put it up high. Now, I definitely did make a giant burn pile with a whole bunch of scrap that I should have had in a burn pile anyway beforehand. But up here, I was able to do all my acrylic, marine board, hardboard, MDF, basswood, laser products type of stuff. And then over here, I was able to do all of my hardwoods. And then on the far side, I was able to get all of my paints, my drop cloths, a whole bunch of larger pieces of plywood cutoffs that I can use for something else. And then I have that neat little built-in shelf that I'm using for pipe and, you know, large metal rods, things that aren't wood, that I need to have a place to put them that's very long. I wanted to say one last thing about Shelfology, not because I need to because they sent this stuff out, but because I had a great experience with them, and so I really want to share that out with you. You know, they actually make these individually for each order. It's not like a mass manufacturer, they have a bin full of these things and ship them out to you. So during the process, I actually got an email with a photo from the person who was making my brackets, showing me an update and saying that it's going to be you know, finished in a few days and should be shipping out. So then I'm looking at it, and they're all handmade in Idaho from locally sourced steel or recycled steel. And then you can tell when you actually look at these that there are differences in each one of the welds on all of these. You can tell that somebody hand ground down after the weld was complete. So as an artisan, I really like getting something that is not that cheapo mass manufactured stuff, but it's actually something that somebody crafted specifically for me, which also means, you know, if you need some sort of unique type of thing, you can contact them and they might be able to help you out with that. But I just thought it was great customer service, and it was really cool for me to find out, like, this wasn't a mass-produced thing. This was something that somebody made. So kudos to Shelfology on that. I hope you got a lot of good content from this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. The subscription is really what helps me grow the channel. And as always, stay safe in the shop. I'll see you in the next video.